Part 38. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 371. Propaganda teams often come to the lower levels to promote the guiding ideology of the above, and often praise the leaders' great achievements. The leaders are the people's faith. After year of edification and year after year of propaganda, the image has already been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Leaders are the sky for the common people. Leaders are the red sun in the east, illuminating the heaven and earth with their endless rays. The cohesion of ordinary people with faith is incredible. This generation can become the backbone of the country and play a role in connecting the past and the future. It is because of this cohesion that it has laid a solid foundation for rapid development in the future. The above were the thoughts in Feng Qingxiu's mind, and Lu Zhang also understood what his father meant and looked thoughtful. Because what my father said was completely different from what was preached in the army. You feel sorry for those soldiers who sacrificed their lives. Why don't your wife and I at home feel sorry for you? Because you are also a member of the battlefield. We are all afraid that you will follow in their footsteps. We are all worried when you are not at home. Live your life. Father Lu's voice became deeper and deeper, but the timing is wrong. It seems calm at the moment, but actually a bigger storm is brewing. Feng Qingxiu patted the little fat man who was clinging to her. Dad, what did you see? Father Lu sneered, don't think that intrigues only exist in the officialdom. In the army, there are also fierce battles over who holds the military power. There are also factional fights. Everyone wants to squeeze out their opponents and get the upper hand. Who wins and who loses is directly related to them. Above. Ajiang is a young man who is used to life and death. He is a good fighter, but he is too idealistic. There is no such thing as perfectionism in the world. I only believe in myself. Ajiang, let me ask you, when you said you wanted to donate gold, did your wife remind you when you agreed? Yes, Lu Zhang replied. In fact, Feng Qingxiu reminded him last night, but he was so impulsive that he didn't notice it. Have you reminded me? Your wife is young and thinks more about some things than you. The situation is not good, so think about everything more pessimistically. Father Lu shook his head. You, whether it's during training or during a war, read more when you have time, and live and learn until you are old. Different ages, different moods, and different feelings. Although Feng Qingxiu sometimes did things inappropriately, that was a thing of the past. After she realized her mistakes, she worked hard to correct them, instead of remaining the same after knowing her mistakes. Father Lu is much more satisfied with his daughter-in-law than his son. Despite his busy schedule, he constantly enriches himself, studies medical skills, and practices calligraphy and painting. Now with the guidance of Uncle Su and Aunt Su, his progress can be said to be rapid. He also learns Russian, English, arithmetic and embroidery from them. The Su family was in decline, but the two elders did not lose their knowledge. In fact, they are also proficient in music, but they are afraid that the sound will be spread out and people will hear it, and it is difficult for a skillful woman to make a meal without rice. They feel very regretful that they cannot teach it to Feng Qingxiu. Father Lu started chatting and couldn't help but added, it's not that I can't bear to part with that little gold. The things confiscated from our house are much more valuable than gold. If you can support your family, gold will naturally be dispensable. When your children and grandchildren grow up in the future, you can also earn a share of the family business. Just remember that the prerequisite for doing good things is to ensure the safety of your family. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 372. Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu agreed in unison, secretly warning themselves to be careful, and to be low-key and low-key. Now that the famine era has passed, there is nothing else to do except exchanging food stamps from comrades in arms to send them food, or sending them some food after receiving dried meat from comrades in arms. Sending food stamps and grains to each other won't cause any trouble. You can just hide them when your family eats. After this incident, Father Lu realized that his son was lacking in certain areas and began to teach him. At the same time, he also remembered some of the things he had collected. Later in the night, when no one was around, he dug them out and gave them to Feng Qingxiu. Not gold, silver, jewelry, antique calligraphy, and paintings, but a box full of eas. Feng Qingxiu took a closer look and saw that they were all eas written by the People's Liberation Army when they were raising military supplies. Some of the eas said to borrow 100 stones of grain, some said to borrow 100 pieces of cotton, and some said to borrow 100 small yellow croakers. Without exception, were all borrowed from Father Lu. They were signed by many senior military officials and leaders, and some were stamped. The paper is yellowed, but it is well preserved, very complete, and the handwriting is clear and legible. Dad, these are the materials we lent? Didn't we say they were donated before? In fact, it is donated to them. Everyone is responsible for the rise and fall of the country. What is the good thing about the comrades of the People's Liberation Army? The good thing is that they do not take a stitch from the people while fighting bloody battles for the country. Therefore, I donate what they need. For materials, whoever is in power will write the IOU. Over the years, I have accumulated a big box. Don't underestimate these things, but you must keep them. At first, they said that when the whole country was liberated, I could come to them with the IOU. You must pay me back according to the IOU. Father Lu was very proud. If Ajiang hadn't caused this incident, I wouldn't have remembered these things. I never thought about going to them to ask for a debt with a note. My donation to support the anti-Japanese war was all voluntary. However, leaving these things can solve a lot of troubles. He has a red heart and faces the sun. The difference in composition does not mean that he has low ideological consciousness. Among them, there were 3 eas written by the leader alone, and 2 letters of thanks were written to him, not to mention the handwriting left by other generals and senior officials. Those who were qualified to sign at the time now have incredibly high positions. Feng Qingxiu flipped through a few pictures and said, "Dad, why are you borrowing gold? 100 small yellow croakers are equivalent to 100 taels of gold." "I know this," Lu Zhang interrupted hurriedly. At that time, foreign guns and ammunition were more advanced and could only be purchased with gold, including some important medicines, just like now foreign equipment can only be imported with gold. Father Lu glared at him. "Why are you talking so much? Go and feed the animals. Zibao will be annoyed when he sees you." Zibao, who was lying in the cradle, seemed to understand and giggled. Lu Jiang's face has recovered to 70% to 80%, and he has gained some flesh. He is not as scary as before. For some reason, Zibao just doesn't get along well with him, probably because Lu Jiang doesn't believe in evil and teases him every day. Feng Qingxiu put the eas away in the space at night. When she turned around, she saw Lu Jiang sitting cross-legged on the bed playing with his son. The room was still very warm. Lu Zibao was wearing light cashmere clothes. After taking off his cotton clothes and trousers, he immediately became very lively. Lu Jiang was sitting on the bedside, holding a biscuit and shaking it towards Zibao lying on the other end. He called Zibao. Zibao turned around and saw the biscuit that he only occasionally ate. His eyes suddenly lit up and he crawled towards him. His 2 arms and belly supported the bed, and they fell together, like a little frog moving forward. His speed was so agile and his movements so funny that Feng Qingxiu pursed her lips in joy. "I'm going to make dumplings, please vote." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 373. Zibao crawled so fast that before Lu Jiang could raise his hand, he grabbed the cookie in his hand. Looking at Zibao, he had arrived in front of Lu Jiang. He was lying on the bed on his belly, using his lower body to straighten his upper body. He supported the weight of his body with one hand and grabbed the biscuit with the other. He quickly turned around and crawled to the place where he came before, which was the end of the bed, where he was sitting. Licking cookies. The meat on the belly is squeezed together, just like a small meat mound. Feng Qingxiu laughed out loud. The fat baby's eyes lit up, he raised his hand, threw the sticky biscuits to Lu Jiang, and crawled towards his mother. He almost fell off the bed, but luckily Lu Jiang caught him back. "Be careful, little fat boy. Ah, bad guy." Zibao kicked his legs back, trying to kick him away but was unable to do so. He suddenly became anxious and stretched his arms towards Feng Qingxiu, making babbling sounds. "Okay, you two, stop making trouble. What time is it?" "It's time to go to bed." Feng Qingxiu checked the window with a slit for ventilation, added a few pieces of charcoal to the brazier, and then shook the bed. "Quilt. Still 2 narrow quilts, the dowry for a wedding. The fabrics currently sold are very narrow, usually 1.2 meters wide, and up to 1.5 meters wide. The latter is rare." Worried about the impact, the big quilt in the space was not taken out after all. Lu Jiang's expression was very sad. "Wife. The couple can't sleep on the same bed, what's the point?" Feng Qingxiu coughed twice and glared at him. Her round eyes were somewhat similar to Zibao's, and there was a hint of warning. "Something happened to me, don't touch me." Lu Jiang's ears drooped all of a sudden, like a big dog that was extremely disappointed that the bones were clearly in front of him but could not be chewed. "Be good." Feng Qingxiu patted the big dog on the head and crawled to the inside of the bed. Zibao climbed up to her mother without hesitation, twisting and rubbing, dominating her breasts. Lu Jiang secretly pinched Zibao's fat butt before going to blow out the lamp with satisfaction. Wife Lu Jiang was sleeping alone in a bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep, and suddenly spoke in the darkness. "What do you want to say?" Feng Qingxiu asked. "Look, I'm 30 years old, and my father still teaches me the same way as before. Are you disappointed in me?" In just a few days, he learned so many things that he had never known before, which was thrilling. "No, you are very kind and real. I like this reality." Feng Qingxiu's voice was soft, with a warm smile. "No one is a perfect saint, and there will be no mistakes in any size. There was not a trace of negligence in the matter. You used to be handsome, generous, considerate, loyal to the country, loyal to your comrades, rich and treasured, but I always felt that I was not worthy of you. Now I know, you are also an ordinary person, you are also impulsive, and you also take things for granted. She married a human being, not a saint, so there was no disappointment or dissatisfaction. He joined the army at the age of 16, and it has been 14 years now. Nearly half of his life has been spent in the military. He was influenced by the army during the period when his thoughts were formed. It was impossible for him to read a lot of books during the Eastern and Western wars. To increase my knowledge. After all, the military has very strict management of books. It is normal to be impulsive and take things for granted. Didn't he already know that he was wrong under the guidance of Father Lu? In just a few days, my thoughts have changed drastically. I am more cautious, more steady, and more considerate of my family. I also have a little regret for some of my previous actions." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 374. Aren't you disappointed? I'm not as impeccable as you thought, Lu Jiang said. Why are you disappointed? I met the real you, not the imaginary you. Feng Qingxiu stretched out a hand from the quilt and patted the quilt wrapped around him like a zibao. "So, you don't have to deny everything about myself because of a few accidental negligences. You are not that bad, you are good, and I like it very much. Lu Jiang's eyes lit up, shining in the darkness. My wife. Feng Qingxiu knew that most men always have a little bit of ridiculous self-esteem and like to show off their advantages in front of their partners, like a peacock spreading its tail. They don't want their shortcomings to be known to their partners. I do the things I brought out cannot withstand scrutiny. If you think about it carefully, it will bring danger to your family. From now on, we will make things right together and protect our home together. Except for coarse and fine grains that can be mixed into the rations, she tries not to let other scarce materials appear in front of outsiders. After 2 or 3 years, before the catastrophe came, it was almost forgotten. Some supplies whose origins can be explained are given to the family, but outsiders do not have this honor. Lu Jiang was so moved that he stretched out his head and kissed her on the face. Honey, you are so kind. He did not despise the danger he brought to her, nor did he despise his irrationality. For the sake of his comrades, he ignored his own safety. Send medicines and food safely. Don't blame me for leaving good food for the two of us. In addition to food, there were a lot of supplies in the space. I couldn't count how many chickens, fish, meat, eggs, melons, fruits, and vegetables I had prepared. There were also a lot of cooked fruits and snacks that I could eat directly, but I only ate a drop in the bucket. Of course I won't blame you if you take everything out, you will be in big trouble. Therefore, the good things are limited to the enjoyment of their small family of 3. Zibao drank milk powder and ate fruit puree. After Lu Jiang and Feng Qingxiu got up, they secretly hid in the bedroom before their family members got up, drank milk, ate nuts, and then ate 2 cages of 3 fresh steamed dumplings. Finally, they opened the windows to ventilate the smell. While cooking, Feng Qingxiu made herself a bowl of brown sugar ginger tea. After drinking it, her whole body was warm. By about 10 o'clock in the afternoon, there was no one else at home. The child had gone to school, and Song Gang was taken to the cowshed by Lu's father. There were only 3 of them in their small family. Feng Qingxiu asked Lu Jiang to take Zibao to watch the wind in the yard. She made a bowl of fish paste for Zibao. It was so fresh that Zibao almost swallowed it with his little tongue. The bottom of the bowl was bare and he screamed to express that he still wanted to eat it. Okay, content yourself, you little fat man. Lu Jiang rubbed the stubble on his chin against Zibao's fat face. Ah, Zibao puffed out his cheeks in dissatisfaction and spat at him. Jing Kuiwa, who knocked on the door and came in, happened to see the scene and laughed loudly. Zibao, that's your father. Feng Qingxiu had just finished washing the dishes. When she saw her, she smiled and said, Sister-in-law, have you eaten? Already eaten. Jing Kuiwa waved her hand, took 3 steps at a time and came to her, and whispered, Zioxiu, are you still collecting eggs? My mother has saved dozens of eggs and some duck eggs, and she wants to sell them. Although the money can be sent to the supply and marketing cooperative for my brother's wife, you also know that the price offered by the supply and marketing cooperative is too low, only 5 cents apiece. Yes, but we have to do it quietly. We can't let outsiders know. It will not end well when the time comes. Feng Qingxiu pointed at Lu Jiang. My Ajiang is extremely thin, and I want to make up for him. When Jing Kuiwa heard that she was willing to accept it, she was extremely happy. She raised her head and said to Lu Jiang, Lu Jiang, you are so lucky. My wife is the best. Lu Jiang smiled, revealing his big white teeth. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 375. Lu Jiang, who had a good wife, lived a happy life, but Zhang Yuejin, who had a lazy wife, had a miserable life. The child was not fat when he was born, but he was not thin either. He was at an upper middle level. His mother assured Miao Fengqin that her grandson would be able to eat during his confinement. After all, the son's living conditions were good, and Miao Fengqin also gave him a lot eggs and white flour rice. On the second day of delivery, Feng Qingxiu asked Lu Zhang to give 20 or 30 eggs, 2 bags of brown sugar, and a bag of millet. After countless calculations, she just failed to calculate one thing. Even though Wang Jiao is heavier than a working pig, her milk is so little that the child cannot feed it. Zhang Yuejin killed a pig and finally got a pair of pig's trotters to take home. He added a handful of aged soybeans and peanuts and stewed half a pot of soup. Wang Jiao drank it all in one meal, and the next morning's milk was only enough for the dog. Eggs for a meal. Gaodan is Zhang Yuejin's son. His name was given by Wang Zhenkuo. He is named Zhang Hung, which means hung with perseverance and perseverance. A bag of milk powder prepared in advance is quickly finished. What should I do? Zhang Yuejin was so worried that his eyebrows almost fell off. I must be eating poorly, so I don't have milk. Wang Jiao wrapped her head and lay on the bed. You brought me a pair of pig's trotters that day. If you ate them the night before, wouldn't there be milk for the dog the next day? Did you eat the eggs? Then the smell of meat disappeared and the milk disappeared. Zhang Yuejin smiled bitterly. I can only supply 4 tails of pork a month. In order to take care of Wang Jiao during the confinement period, he spent a lot of effort in advance to get 3 kilograms of meat tickets and a lot of candy stamps and egg stamps from his colleagues and friends, and saved them for her during the confinement period, but he couldn't help but eat every meal. Meat. Now, Wang Jiao eats 5 meals a day, and for each of the 2 meals, she has to eat a bowl of noodles with 4 eggs, or brown sugar tea made with 4 eggs. The other 3 meals were just mediocre meals like them. 3 kilograms of meat a month, 1 tael a day, is not enough to fill Wang Jiao's teeth. Yuejin gritted her teeth and said, there are still 2 old hens at home, just waiting for your wife to be confinement. You go out and kill one first, cut it into 2 halves, stew half of the chicken in a pot until it's rotten, and give it to your wife eat. During Wang Jiao's pregnancy, she stared at the 2 old hens until her eyes almost popped out. She was never willing to kill them. Wang Jiao immediately beamed, yes, 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 the old hen has been stewed for a whole day before it can be bitten. Go kill Yuejin quickly and stew it early. When stewing, put some hazelnut mushrooms that Zioxia gave me. Comrade Lu Zhang came from the northeast sent. Go right now, go right now. After Zhang Yuejin finished speaking, he couldn't help but said, but Gaodan can't wait until the milk comes down. His mother gave some advice, your wife's cousin has raised her well. You can tell by looking at how her Zibao looks. I haven't heard of her weaning Zibao. You go, wait a minute. I'd better ask her to come and wean him. Give Gaodan a meal, kill the chicken and stew it at home, and give Zioxia a bowl when the time comes. You can't make Gaodan cry from hunger. Aren't you crying? There was no milk or milk powder, so I had to make some rice soup to feed him. Zhang Yuejin was a little embarrassed. Can it be done? I'll go ask, his mother said. How would you know the result if you didn't ask? Although everyone's life is much better now than it was 2 years ago, who doesn't have half a year of vegetables and half a year of food? Try to save as much food as possible to prepare for emergencies. The result of frugal food and clothing is that there are not many mothers with enough milk. Many children are born without milk. If they can drink 2 mouthfuls of rice soup, millet porridge, they are from families with particularly good living conditions. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 376. Feng Qingxiu heard Yuejin's intention, but she didn't refuse. She eats well in private and her milk supply has always been abundant. Now that Zibao has started to take complementary food and milk powder, she usually sucks out the excess milk with a breast pump and stores it in a space. Anyway, she will not take the initiative to breastfeed other children. No matter how careful other people's children are, they can't be as clean and cute as her Zbao. That's it? Feng Qingxiu pulled Yu Ejin's mother, who was relieved, and whispered, "Auntie, something has happened to me. I came here yesterday. If you dislike it, there is half a can of leftover milk powder from Zbao at home." She poured the milk powder into the malted milk jar. The milk powder she gives her son is imported and high-end. There's no way. It's not that she doesn't support domestic products, it's that she can't trust them. She said this because she remembered that some people thought that the milk produced during menstruation during breastfeeding was dirty milk. In fact, there is no such statement in medicine, and the quality and quantity of milk after menstruation are basically not affected. What do I dislike? How many people can still have milk after more than half a year of giving birth? Those who have milk are lucky and good wives. Only with good body and bones and good food can you have good milk. Yu Ejin mother didn't care at all, but continued to smile and said, "What's going on is that I can have a baby. While Lu Zhang is at home, try to add another big fat boy to the Lu family. One Zbao is enough to give me a headache." He was very skinny within 8 months. Lu Zhang held him high at home every day, changed and washed his diapers, and he was finally liberated. Second child. The second child is a matter of fate. She had just gotten her period, and Lu Zhang only had about 10 days left at home, so he might not be able to win the prize. While the mother-in-law and her husband were talking, they arrived at Zhang's house. Half of the chicken was already stewed, and the aroma filled the courtyard. Wang Jiao was so greedy that she drooled. She lay on the crack of the window that was not tightly sealed and sniffed. The puppy Dandan was so hungry that he grunted in his swaddling clothes. His energy were not as good as that of Zbao, who was also so big and thin. Small and dark. Wang Jiao also thought it was black, and said to her cousin who was holding the dog's egg while breastfeeding, "I think it should be called Heidan." Against Jingfeng Qingxiu's snow-white skin, the dog's balls were terribly black. Feng Qingxiu fed the dog eggs and made burps skillfully. After he fell asleep, she placed him next to Wang Jiao's pillow and covered him with a quilt. When I put the quilt on, I was hit by the smell of oil. Feng Qingxiu took a closer look and saw that the edges of Wang Jiao's dowry quilt were oily and black and full of stains, which were the areas where the quilt was close to her neck and chin when she slept. This showed that this quilt had never been removed or washed at all. "Cousin, if you are too lazy to take off the quilt, just sew a layer of cloth on the head of the quilt. If it gets dirty, take off the cloth and wash it." "Xiaoxiu, you are so smart." Wang Jiao's eyes lit up. "I'll ask my mother-in-law to sew it up tomorrow so it looks clean. I'm in confinement, and my mother told me that doing needlework during confinement can easily hurt my eyes." Feng Qingxiu was speechless after hearing this. Wang Jiao didn't take it seriously and held her hand. "Xiaoxiu, you must tell my mother-in-law and Yu Ejin that I have to eat well to have milk." "You must eat well to have milk, but I can't say this in front of you," Feng Qingxiu thought to herself. Wang Jiao's condition is called greedy for milk in the countryside, and it is relatively common. The 3 daily meals must be a combination of meat and vegetables to satisfy the mother's appetite, and the milk will naturally come down. "Okay, you have a good confinement period and I will come see you when I have time." Feng Qingxiu stood up and said goodbye to Yu Ejin's mother, who had just come in. Yu Ejin's mother hurriedly persuaded her to stay. "Your brother-in-law has stewed the old hen. You can stay and drink some soup and eat some meat before going back. You can't let people come over to feed your grandson in person, and your family doesn't show any sign of it. Leave it to my cousin. My cousin needs some supplements during confinement, so don't be polite to me." Feng Qingxiu naturally declined. "If my cousin's milk is not enough, I will feed the dog eggs tomorrow, or express the milk and go to my house to bring it back and heat it up for the dog to eat. I'm sorry if there's really no milk. My sisters gave birth to babies one after another. One of them started to gush with milk after drinking a bowl of egg tea, while the other had no milk after a meal. So the former regained her figure after confinement, while the latter gained dozens of pounds while breastfeeding. She laughed and cried. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 377. The leaping mother gratefully sent Feng Qingxiu to the door, and happened to bump into Lu Jiang, who came to pick her up. Hey, Ajiang is here to pick you up again? How worried are you? Yuejin Niang couldn't help but joke. Feng Qingxiu's face turned red and she pulled her big gray scarf to cover half of her face. Auntie, please don't make fun of us. Zibao must have missed me. He brought Zibao to find me, even if it is. When Lu Jiang missed him, he had to praise 11 Bao, because in today's era, the relationship between men and women is not allowed to be too superficial. Ah, Zibao was riding on Lu Jiang's neck with great air, and the cry in his mouth seemed to be responding to his mother. His two chubby hands patted Lu Jiang's head when he saw his mother. Immediately reached out to her without hesitation. Lu Jiang raised his hands to support him. Hey, 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 my little ancestor, don't move. Zibao ignored him and stared at Feng Qingxiu. Seeing that she didn't come to hug him, he yelled angrily and clapped even harder. Zibao is so cute, he is white and fat, so beautiful. Yuejin's mother was extremely envious. When will her eldest grandson grow up like this? Wearing a tiger head hat and a bright red scarf, his face looks whiter and fatter, and his eyes are big and black. He really looks like the little fairy boy in the arms of the Guanyin Queen in the painting in previous years. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, the child can't help but praise, please go back. It's cold outside. The child's father came to pick me up. I'm going home now. Then I won't keep you. You guys should walk slowly on the road. The snow will melt and the road will be difficult to walk. Zioxiu, thank you very much for today. After Yuejin's mother finished speaking, she sighed in her heart and hurried back to take care of her grandson. The daughter-in-law is too lazy, so as a mother-in-law, she can only work harder. Feng Qingxiu walked towards her husband and children. As soon as his wife arrived, Lu Jiang noticed that the little fat man was leaning forward, wanting to throw himself into his wife's arms. He was so anxious that his whole body was shaking, and his hands were scratching in the air. He hurriedly moved him from his neck to his arms, and held him with one hand. He pointed his nose with his other hand and said matter-of-factly, you are too fat. Mom can't carry you. Dad can handle it alone. He is so young, how can he understand what you say? Feng Qingxiu smiled and took her son into her arms. When she saw her clean, white, and fat son, her heart was so bright that she couldn't help but lower her head and kiss him. His big fat face. His own son is the most handsome and the most handsome in the world. Zibao nuzzled his mother proudly, then lay on her shoulder to look at the scenery. As Lu Jiang walked, he always paid attention to the situation of the mother and son, and suddenly found that his son's thick eyebrows were twitching. What's the matter? Little fatty, as soon as he asked, he saw his son's fat paws reaching out, and he couldn't help but smile. This was the first time that his son reached out to him, and he quickly hugged him over. Did you find out that Dad it's most comfortable to hold you, right? From now on, let Dad do the work of holding you, and Mom will take it easy. Feng Qingxiu shook her arms and saw her son kicking his legs hard in her husband's arms, shouting and lifting up. He wants to ride on your neck, sit high and see far. Boys are brave after all. Really, as soon as Lu Jiang finished speaking, his son sprayed saliva on his face, and he had no choice but to put it on his neck. As expected, the little fat boy stopped and lay on his head, looking left and right, shouting from time to time. Two sounds. Feng Qingxiu saw his saliva dripping onto Lu Jiang's head from time to time and pursed her lips. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 378. A family of three walking on a muddy snowy road is just a sight to others. The man is tall and burly, while the woman is petite and graceful. The fat boy is the most eye-catching, with his chubby white face particularly eye-catching. The red scarf around his neck flutters in the wind, protecting him from the harsh cold wind. Zibao looks really good, look at how chubby he is. Lujang, you are lucky to have a good wife and a fat son. Treat your wife well while you are at home. It's so cold, you two are so generous, you just brought Zibao out without fear of freezing him. Along the way, these words filled my ears. Lujang smiled a little silly, and suddenly met Miao Fengqin, who was hurrying on his way. Where did you three come from? When Miao Fengqin saw them, she immediately stopped and pulled Fengqin Xiu, Xiaoxiu, I vaguely heard someone say that Jiao Jiao's mother-in-law is looking for you. Why are she looking for you? Jiao Jiao is in trouble. Or is there something wrong with the child? Who would invite Fengqin Xiu to their home when they are not sick or in pain or have children? Thinking of her daughter and grandson, Miao Fengqin was worried to death. No, she was carrying water. When someone told her about this, she rushed back immediately, put the bucket home and stepped on the way to her daughter's house. Fengqin Xiu smiled and said, "Don't worry, my dear, cousin and Gauden are both fine. Everything is fine, why are we looking for you?" Miao Fengqin didn't believe it. My cousin has no milk. She has finished eating Gauden's milk powder. She is so hungry that she keeps crying. Aunt Zhang asked me to feed Gauden a meal. After hearing this, Miao Fengqin frowned even more. Jiao Jiao ate so well during her pregnancy that she grew fatter than a mission pig. I gave a lot of things to her the day after giving birth, didn't you also give them? How come you don't have milk when you eat so well? Is it because Yu Ejin didn't want to make delicious food for Jiao Jiao? She made a promise on the day Gauden was born, isn't she breaking her promise? There is an eternal problem between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. The first thing a mother seems to suspect is that her mother-in-law is not treating her daughter well. It's nothing, Fengqin Xiu said hurriedly. When I arrived at my cousin's house, my cousin's husband was stewing old hens for my cousin. I heard from my cousin that she eats 2 eggs every day, either egg noodles or brown sugar eggs. My son also ate pig's trotter soup. Miao Fengqin was dubious, how come you don't have milk when you eat so well? Fengqin Xiu smiled and said, do you still know what kind of person my cousin is? She eats everything and doesn't suffer any loss. Why aren't my cousin-in-law and Aunt Zhang following her? My cousin-in-law's 2 brothers are standing at the door of the kitchen. You are drooling and sniffing, you don't know how pitiful you are, so you ask Aunt Zhang to stuff 2 steamed buns to keep them away, fearing that if they take a mouthful of soup, your cousin will eat less. If desires are not satisfied, there will be no milk to feed the child. Zhang Yuejin also has 2 younger brothers, one is 10 years old, named Zhang Qinjin, and the other is 8 years old, named Zhang Fenjin. They are both in school. Although Zhang Yuejin separated from his parents as soon as he got married, he will pay for his younger brother's tuition fees. To get a wife, you have to rely on Zhang Yuejin. According to Fengqin Xiu's private analysis, this is probably the reason why Yuejin's mother tolerates Wang Jiao endlessly. Zhang Yuejin's father is still alive and works hard every year to earn work points, but everyone knows that it is good to earn enough food throughout the year with your face turned to the lowest and your back to the sky. If there is not much money left, the whole family counts Zhang Yuejin in and out, and they all look up to him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 379. Zhang Yuejin also has a sister who is 4 years younger than him, named Hongying. When she was a child, her parents gave her to her as a child bride because her family was poor. She had to work every day and she didn't have enough to eat. Her husband's family beat and scolded her day and night. In the past few years, Zhang Yuejin's wife was he took her back with 20 yuan, and found her a husband the next year. After the marriage, she gave birth to 2 children, and her life was pretty good. Wang Jiao had a good impression of this little sister-in-law and was full of praises when she mentioned her. Feng Qingxiu guessed that Hong Ying might be grateful for her brother's devotion to her. Every time she went back to her parents' home, she either worked for her brother and sister-in-law or cleaned the house. Just like Wang Jiao. Miao Fengqin felt more relieved after hearing the explanation, but still decided to go to her daughter's house. When she was far away, Lu Zhang said, "Zhang Yuejin is good enough to Wang Jiao, how worried is the big concubine?" Hearing is false, seeing is believing. Feng Qingxiu didn't want to talk behind people's backs. Anyway, she now has a handsome and good husband, a fat and lovely son, and a group of considerate and kind-hearted family members. She has already. I no longer envy Wang Jiao's good fortune. Others' blessings belong to others and cannot be envied. She has no innate blessings and can create blessings for herself. It is difficult for Lu Zhang to understand the thoughts of Wang Jiao's family. Wang Jiao has developed a lazy temperament. The family has unshirkable responsibilities. Time flies and people's hearts change. How long can Wang Jiao's blessing last? Feng Qingxiu saw through his thoughts at a glance and said with a smile, "Let's just take care of ourselves. Take care of yourself and educate the next generation. The elders should not be a burden to the younger generation, and the younger generation should live up to the teachings of the elders and behave uprightly." Father Lu also taught his grandchildren this way. They had a holiday the next day. Instead of letting them play wildly, the old man arranged homework for them. Most of the time, he taught them some life principles while they were practicing calligraphy, so as to prevent them from making mistakes. Go astray. After Lu Jiang's incident, Father Lu put his children's education first. Be cautious in your actions. In order to survive, you must be cautious in your words and actions. Sometimes, Lu's father specially brought Lu Jiang with him, which greatly reduced the time the couple spent together during the day. Lu Jiang was extremely jealous of Zibao, until the 7th day after he returned home, Wang Zhenqiu announced that he would kill pigs and fish. After handing over the mission pigs, the Wanglu Brigade still had 3 pigs left. The reservoir belonging to the Wanglu Brigade has not caught fish for several years. With permission to fish, there will definitely be something fishy this year. How come the pigs were killed just a few days after the 12th lunar month? Last year, the pigs were killed for stew on the New Year's Eve. Hearing Lu Tianzi's doubts, Father Lu narrowed his eyes and did not answer. However, after the children went to practice calligraphy, he turned to look at Feng Qingxiu, who was feeding his grandson egg custard, and Lu Zhang beside him. "Xiaoxiu, what are you doing? What do you think?" Feng Qingxiu casually said, "My cousin is in confinement. She kills pigs and divides the meat and catches the fish. This not only facilitates the confinement period for my cousin, but also makes the people happy. No matter how much meat and fish you can divide per head, it is better than last year. It was better to eat a big pot of food on New Year's Eve. Moreover, if you get it, salt it, and save it, so every household can eat it during the new year." At this point, Feng Qingxiu smiled softly. "Why do you care so much? If uncle says to kill pigs, and if uncle says to fish, then fish. Let's obey and do as we are told. Let's make a good braised meal while Ajiang is at home. The meat satisfies the family's cravings and also nourishes him." Lu Zhang likes braised pork the most, which is what Lu's father said before. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 380. In the past few days since Lu Zhang came back, Feng Qingxiu had secretly fed him several meals of braised pork in the space. Otherwise, how could he grow flesh so quickly? Dreaming is faster. Lu Zhang obviously also remembered his wife's kindness to him, and secretly grinned at her. The taste of braised pork is really unforgettable, but my wife doesn't eat much because she thinks it's too fatty. Father Lu didn't know the secret between his son and his daughter-in-law. He nodded when he was satisfied with his daughter-in-law's answer. The pig must be killed first, Ajong. Don't forget to help, gentlemen. I know, Dad. Lu Zhang finally had an intuitive understanding of how much the Wang family loved their daughter. This was more than just pain, it was like being pampered and obeyed. Okay. Fortunately, meat and fish are collective, and more than one Wang Jiao benefited. To put it bluntly, everyone gets such benefits purely because of Wang Jiao's favor. If you were in another production brigade, you would definitely kill a pig, eat a big pot of food for all the fellow villagers, and sell the rest to the supply and marketing cooperative, which not only supports national construction, but also generates income for the production brigade. Fortunately, the 3 pigs and the reservoir belong to the Wanglu brigade, so the 3 pigs face the fate of being slaughtered amidst everyone's cheers. Zhang Yuejin was still the master of killing pigs, and other strong laborers helped. Of the 3 pigs, not a single one was left alive, all were killed. The pig's screams made Zibao clap his hands with joy. He wanted to put his head in front of the pig's head to watch the fun. Feng Qingxiu finally hugged him and said, "Don't make trouble, stinky boy, or I'll spank you." Different from the tit-for-tat confrontation with Lu Zhang, after hearing her mother's words, Zibao let out a sigh and suddenly became depressed. Feng Qingxiu couldn't help but kiss him a few times. "Zibao, be obedient. Mom will make you some minced meat later." As soon as he heard the word eat, Zibao's eyes lit up and his mouth watered. Jing Kuihua, who was standing next to Feng Qingxiu, saw this and laughed happily. "Zioxiu, your Zibao's reaction is so funny. How can he be so cute? He can actually understand what you say." Just as he was talking, the pigs had been killed over there. Zhang Yuejin was an expert at killing pigs. He cut the various parts of the pigs and placed them neatly on the chopping board. Based on the accountant's calculations, he distributed them door to door based on the head. However, Zhang Yuejin ordered 2 pairs of pig trotters. Compared with pig's trotters, which have only a layer of skin and are full of big bones, pork is obviously more popular with everyone. In addition, everyone knows that there is a breastfeeding mother in his family, and they have no objection to it. He asked for 2 pairs of pig's trotters, and his share of meat would definitely be much less. Zhang Yuejin called Lu Zhang to come and get the meat. According to the population of the Lu family, not counting Lu Zhang who joined the army and Lu's father, who was a single household, there were 8 people in total including Song Gang and Lu Zibao. They cut a meat of 2 kilograms and 4 tails. The heavy pork belly was also given an uncleaned pork bone, which Zhang Yuejin chopped off with the back of a machete. In other words, everyone can get 3 tails of meat. Zhang Yuejin is well versed in the art of dividing meat. Lu Zhang had told him earlier that he wanted pork belly, so he did this. He gave others pork suet, pork belly, lean pork ribs, pig sesame, and put them together in proportion. Everyone was happy. No any advice. As soon as the meat was divided here, the people there urged Wang Zhenkuo to order the nets to be cast for fishing. "Captain, party secretary, take advantage of the good weather and the ice in the reservoir has melted, and quickly lower the net." That's right, if you take advantage of the victory and pursue it, you will definitely gain a lot. Cast the net this afternoon and close it tomorrow morning. I'm sure you'll catch a lot of lively fish. Please collect, leave a message, vote, PK. I don't know what PK recommendation is, but it's correct to ask for it anyway. In addition, it will be released on the shelves either on the 10th or the 13th, and there will be an update of 50,000 words that day, so everyone should get involved.